Welcome to the show. We're going to do a Q&A. I'm JJ Flazanes.
I am catapulted all the way across the country in Baltimore, and I am Doug Sandler.
Yeah, you are Doug Sandler, and
I don't like being all the way across the country where I can't like hold your hand or look at your face or anything like that.
Aw, I don't like it either. Although the one benefit is that the audio quality will be easier to edit because we'll be on the same level versus the whole like mic to the face thing. And but
mercy.
You're coming home soon, so
I am.
I just enjoy the fact that we can still do this when you're not sitting next to me because I've gotten used to the fun aspect of recording with you where we can do it anywhere, in the car, in the bed, on the couch, at the dinner table.
This is just one more way that we can record. That's right. We've got all of those things going down.
Yeah, it's really fun. I wanted to address a couple questions that we had. And a couple weeks ago, I did a solo Q&A show. And on that show, I did think, you know what? I do want to hear what Doug would have to say. I just didn't feel like debating it with you. So,
oh my God. So wait a minute. So you wanted to hear what I had to say, but you actually didn't want to hear what I had to say is what I just heard there.
No, I wanted to hear what you had to say, not influenced by what I said. I had a very specific point of view that I wanted to share, and I thought yours might be, it's fine that it's different. I just didn't want you to be influenced by me. So let me read the question. The question's from Ralph. Ralph already knows that I've answered this question. He's been sending me some emails. And he says, so now I have a job, moved to Seattle, and loving it. Now it's time to manifest the love of my life. I have met someone, but she falls short in many parts of my list on the perfect mate, and I can't see this working out too much longer. I could go into my list with you, but some of it is petty, but some of it's just too much shit she has to deal with, and I don't want to be a part of my life. How do I break this off? Do I just hang out with her until my perfect lady comes around, or will she be in the way and cloud my judgment? She is sweet and nice, and in the past, I would just settle, but I don't want her stress in my life.
I would just like to say one word. That word would be Donna.
Okay, so you're going to make this about us.
Well, I'm trying to come up with some level of relatability that I have to the situation that Ralph is going through. So wait, I haven't heard. Was there a question in there, or was it the lead question, which is not sure what to do? Help me.
There were a couple questions. The first one is don't answer them yet. How do I break this off?
Mm-hmm.
Do I just hang out with her until my perfect lady comes around, or will she be in the way and cloud my judgment? There's three questions.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you want to approach this? Do we want to approach this in Ralph? It sounded like you've kind of you're almost answering your own question there, but just haven't quite turned the corner in answering the question. You at least know your options. That's really good that you have a couple of options there that you're thinking about. I'm wondering if Ralph, well, I guess Ralph is answering his own question right now, because if he's still seeing her, he hasn't figured out that maybe she's clouding his judgment, or maybe he shouldn't be hanging out with her, or maybe he's got some sort of wish to get into a relationship and deeper into a relationship and potentially go down a path with somebody that is not a good fit for him. Or is it that maybe he could learn to love her if including her faults? Interesting. What are you thinking? Or are you asking?
I've already answered this question. So what I think is interesting is that you said the same thing I did at the top of your answer, which is it sounds like you've already made your decision. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I said. And Doug hasn't listened to the episode that I recorded on this at all.
I promise I never listen to JJ until she tells me to.
That's not true.
That's not true. I know. So, okay. So let's,
this is about your answer, and don't ask more questions. Just answer.
I'm kind of thinking out loud here. So I would like to get some, I want to have you be a sounding board for just a couple of moments while I kind of play with a potentially a few different answers. So let's talk about the fact that Ralph is even aware. So he's conscious of the fact that maybe this is a mistake. That the fact that he is even questioning it would lead me to believe it probably is a mistake that he is seeing this woman. My concern is that depending on what Ralph's history is, that there could have been an entire host of women in his life that are like this, and maybe through either listening to your show or doing some self-work or whatever he's doing, he's now aware that that this is a pattern that he has fallen into before. So that being said, I think that he realizes that this is a this is a mistake. Before we tell him how to break it off, I think that we have to. Can we acknowledge together, you and I, that that this relationship that Ralph is entering into or is involved in is probably a mistake for Ralph?
Well, he did say at the end of this message, in the past, he would have just settled, but
Yeah.
he doesn't want her stress in his life.
Yeah, which the stress in her life will create undue stress in your life too, unless you completely just are in this relationship for one of a couple things. Maybe you're in it for the sex. I don't know. That could be. We have friends that, specifically one person in mind that I'm thinking about, who I won't mention his or her name, but said that the sex that he or she is having right now was the best sex in his life. And so sometimes that has a way of, especially for a guy, that has a way of clouding your judgment. The other thing which is interesting about it is that since there is no one else, it sounds like there's no one else in Ralph's life right now. Maybe Ralph is seeing her as just like a holding station for until somebody better comes along, which I never think is a good idea. I don't really think that you should put yourself in that position. Are you feeling the same thing, or am I heading down a different path? I know there's no wrong answer here, but what do you think about that?
Well, let's go back to how you started the answer, which was Donna. So
Right, right.
let's talk about that because in theory, you
Yeah,
understand what's going on here. But let's talk
yes.
about Doug Sandler for a second.
Yeah, sure.
You went on a date
Yeah,
and
so I went on a date with this.
explain this date. I think we've
Yeah.
talked about it a little bit, but go ahead.
So
Explain.
fairly quickly after my marriage broke up, I had a family member introduce me to somebody because she said, "Hey, would you be interested in seeing in dating someone else, or at least going out with somebody else this soon?" And I said, "Sure." I like relationships, so for me, I always find myself gravitating towards relationships for whatever need that gets filled in my head. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, maybe the need for acceptance or the need for approval or need to not feel abandoned or any of those issues, which I know are all my problems. So for whatever reason, I said yes. I went out on this date, and she was okay. I mean, she was nice. She was very nice to me, and she liked me, and it was obvious that she wanted to go on a second date. And at that point, you and I started to see each other, or at least we had I can't remember where we were in our relationship, but extremely early on in the relationship. And I was very open to sharing that information. I think it was before we had traveled away together. So I said, yeah, I'll go on a second date because I think that's what I thought that's what she wanted. And I wasn't completely adverse to it, but I really didn't have anything else going on in my life. So I was thinking, oh, okay, maybe I'll just do this. And then in having a conversation with you, not because you were jealous, or at least I don't think you were, I'm pretty sure that this was the direction that you were heading in with me, was like, well, why would you go on another date with her? You don't like her. I'm like, I know, but she asked me. I'm like, well, that was in my mind, that was probably a really bad decision to say I would want to go on another date with her because I knew it wasn't going to go anywhere, and it was only going to get me in emotional trouble with her because if she was getting to like me more, I was pulling away from her more, but I was continuing to go out with her, and that is not helping anyone at all. So that's why I said the word Donna.
Okay, so why did you do it? Why did you knew you were going down a path of if she likes me more or not, but you still said yes. So why'd you do
Okay.
that?
So I said yes because of the aforementioned reasons, which were I wanted to feel loved or even needed. If it wasn't love, but I wanted to feel liked. I wanted to be approved. I just gotten out of a relationship that was, I'm like, holy shit, I have no idea why this relationship, look, I know that wasn't the perfect relationship, but I couldn't believe it was ending. So that was a challenge to me. So I was seeking love, affection, attention, lack of communication, anything that were good qualities that I thought I would be able to find in a relationship. And it was like I was inserting those qualities into that relationship, even though none of those qualities actually existed. So I was making up a story in my head that this would be a better thing for me than being alone. And that was, that was a mistake because that was my need for someone else to make me feel better about myself. And that sucks. You should never do that.
Well, you were just rejected. You were left, and
Hmm.
now you wanted to feel like someone else wanted you.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Okay. So, yeah, I've already answered this whole question, and I'd love to have Ralph come back on the Facebook group and give us a little bit of an update as to. I mean, actually, he did send me private messages, but I don't want to read them because I don't know how much he wants me to share of that.
Okay,
So,
so let me ask some questions though, because here's where I would go with Ralph. And again, I'm not asking you to, and I don't know Ralph, by the way. I don't I never like to get too deep into someone's personal issues that is privately sharing them with JJ, because I think it's important to remain as not secretive, but as, what's the word, confidential as possible. So feel comfortable that I don't know any of this stuff behind the scenes. But what I would ask Ralph are a couple of questions. Number one, I would ask why. Why does he feel as though he is staying with this woman? What future is it in the event that he does stay with her? Does he see that it's going? What's like the future potential with this woman? And if this is where you are right now, and this is kind of probably the best that it's going to be, and you're going to be, if this is the honeymoon phase, what happens when you get into the relationship? That's really going to be bad. So I probably, in my mind, I don't think it's a good idea for either party, either for him or for her, to go down this path of staying in this relationship.
I agree, and I think I might have said this in my Q&A. I do it on the fly, so I don't really take notes or really overly analyze before I start recording. I just start talking. So I have a client who is on the brink of starting to date, and I know one of the concerns for both men and women is the idea of hurting someone else's feelings. I mean,
Hmm.
isn't that one of the reasons why you didn't say no to Donna?
Yeah, I think so. I think in more than just Donna's case, there's probably been a lot of instances where that's why I did anything in making a decision about some relationships and some not romantic relationships, just about any relationship. So yes, I would say definitely.
Okay. And what I was telling her in one of our sessions was the idea of you don't, when people think of hurting someone else's feelings, I understand we want to be kind, but in the matter of choosing a partner, in the matter of choosing, a husband, a wife, a
Hmm.
boyfriend, a girlfriend, someone to spend time with, your time is valuable, your energy and your attention is valuable.
Hmm.
And that doesn't mean that because you're deciding not to spend time with someone that that's mean. If it's not a fit, you're actually doing both of you, like you said, a disservice by lying and kind of letting it go on longer than it needs to. I mean, there's part of your intuition that you knew, even though you were in more of a wounded state at the time, to you cared more about filling your cup of feeling wanted than you did about being honest with Donna, because you were coming from a deficit place, which make
Right, right.
which I understand. And I was also in the picture, and no, I wasn't jealous. In fact, I said to you, do you want to go on another date with her? Do you want to date around? Had you said to me, I mean, at that point, we had met in Denver. At that point, you were living in Baltimore and I was here, and who knew
Yeah,
what was going to happen? I had no
yeah.
idea that you would move in with me necessarily. I mean,
And that you would fall in love with me so deeply, so quickly. No, no idea.
yeah, and vice versa. Thank you very much.
You're
Um,
welcome very much.
right. So we were at the beginning stages of dating. So
Yeah.
if you would have said to me, this is fun and let's do this every so often for a little while and we'll date other people, I would have been totally fine with that. I would have done what I keep talking about. I would have got on eHarmony and I would have been like, okay, cool. Let me start dating and let me see
I
what that looks like.
That would have been such a challenge for me, not only because of the long distance side of things, but just because my nature, my who I have been for always and ever, has been as a relationship person. Now, with this new, I want to call it the new me being the conscious me. The conscious me still would have had a hard time with this, because it's very challenging to me to date multiple people. And I know, again, how my mechanism works inside. I also get a little bit jealous too. So I would have had a hard time with you seeing other people, unless in my head I just placed our relationship in a different category. And it would be the category of, well, if I would have placed you in the same category as, let's say, as Donna, where I wouldn't care if Donna had gone out on another date with anybody. She probably was seeing other people. And I was not asking her to only see me. I mean, it was one date, for crying out loud. But when it came to you, I would have had a really hard time making that journey across the country to see you for even a temporary period of time, knowing that you're going to see other people. And I probably wouldn't have leaned into that relationship at all.
Okay. Well, this is good to know about yourself. I think that, the location and distance served us well in sort of making a decision about what to do. But
Mm-hmm.
let's say we lived down the block, there would have been, you would have had an easier time potentially not maybe dating around. I mean,
Well,
and it's,
but
and it's
here's
a
how I
good
feel about
growth.
that.
Hold on. It's a good growth opportunity though,
Yeah.
for you
Yeah.
to learn how to manage that and to decide that you're worthy and this is who you are. I mean, I think this is a good conversation to have because I know you say this is how you are. Well, that's because you haven't learned how to be different.
Yes,
And
exactly.
the difference is being able to work on your own self-esteem, to be able to say, this is who I am, this is what I offer, and it's either going to work out or it's not. And then show up and have a good time. And you can still be honest and say, you know what, I really like you and I really want to spend more time with you. And I don't know that I want to date anybody else. And to be choosy, I'm trying to teach people, some of my clients who are newly single or out of a relationship or haven't really dated much, to take the step of learning what it is that you bring to a relationship, understanding what it is you want out of a relationship, and then to treat it like shopping and to go and experiment and see what's out there. You don't know what's out there until you try it. And then of course that conversation of, well, I don't want to be mean and reject somebody, but you're also not going to do anybody any favors by sticking around to, until, what are you going to wait for them to reject you? Like, it's just, we have to stop taking responsibility for everybody's feelings. We're all in the same game of, are you someone I want to spend time with or have sex with or spend my life with? And if it's not a yes and a yes equally and on both sides, move on. And that is why eventually, I said to my soon to be ex-husband, do you want to be married anymore? Because at this point, after trying to be patient for a long time and being compassionate and understanding all the things he was going through, at some point I thought, you know what, it's my turn too. I would like to be with someone who actually wants to be with me, who wants to do the work, who recognizes that relationships are not a walk in the park because it brings up old wounds. It's just inevitable. And so at that point, I was happy to be patient because I don't need someone else to be happy. But there becomes a point in time where you say, you know what? This isn't balanced. This isn't equal. I am giving more than I am getting, or I'm giving more than you're investing into the same thing. And it's time. And I understand, and it's okay. But it's time for me to allow myself the privilege of finding someone or being with someone who actually wants to be with me at the same level. And I don't think it's any different in dating.
I think the other issue is that, and the problem that most, and I don't want to put this into the bucket of just guys, but I can talk about it from a guy's perspective, is that you really don't know what you have until it's gone. And that's the worst part. It's like you don't realize how much you appreciated the relationship until the relationship is over. And that, when I was in the middle of having the conversation with my ex about, do you want to be married, or whatever that my variation of that conversation was. And it's not that she gave me the answer of the same as yours, which is it shouldn't be this hard. But it was more of the answer of, I thought I believed, in happily ever after. And I'm not sure that I thought I had believed in marriage, and I really don't know that I believe in marriage anymore. So it wasn't like she was rejecting me. She was which maybe she was just letting me down easily. She was more rejecting the idea of, I don't know that I believe in marriage. And for me, I was like, that sucks that you're this way, but why did you wait until 2.5 years, a short marriage and a 7-year, 6-year relationship? I would have sooner not gotten married, and maybe it would have still resulted in the same end of the relationship. But man, that certainly sucked. And you don't realize what you have until it's gone. I was so, I guess, to a degree, angry, upset, emotional about it. I was like, fuck it, okay. And then we just decided that it was going to be over. And then I went through, like, how many months of heartbreak did I go through? How challenging was that time? I mean, you were a part of my life for that. I mean, and that was really hard. So it's really challenging when you don't know what you got until it's gone. But by the time it's gone, it's too late. For those of you that are in there, try to work on your relationship. Either stay involved in the relationship and decide that you're going to work on it, or get out of the relationship because you shouldn't be in it anyway, because it's only going to lead you down a path of shit that you don't want to deal with. So really, really a tough situation. And again, if we're going back to Ralph for a moment, I would just say, probably a bad relationship. If you want to go to my relationships, it's a whole bunch of wounds that I was trying to heal in the Don, because there could have been many Donnas in my life. But unfortunately, there was only one.
All right, but now I want you to go. You said something very interesting that I think I want to take a little deeper dive into, which was you said you don't know what you've got until it's gone. All right, maybe at first there was that, but looking back, what would you say now about your relationship that you didn't see while you were in it?
Oh my God, there was so many things that I didn't see. I mean, you don't see the shit that's going on in your life until you take a conscious view of what you were dealing with. I was dealing with, and we talked about this on a previous episode just recently. We talked about, becoming a people pleaser was really bad for it, or being a people pleaser was really bad because I was letting other people make decisions for me in my relationships. And then I started to resent them for making the decisions when I gave them the power to begin with. So some of those things don't happen until later, until you're done with the relationship.
There are 2 points of view here that you can take. You can say you don't know what you have until it's gone because you're a person who's focused on the negative. You're the person who's in defensive mode. You're the person who's in self-preservation mode. You're the person
Mm-hmm.
who is not acknowledging because you don't understand what you have that's good. At the same time, I think for you, you were the person who was in La La Land. I'm focusing on what all the good things, and I'm ignoring and not noticing all the other things that are challenging. And so when you get out, you're now starting to see, oh, I didn't see that before. Oh, I didn't really get that before. Did she do that the whole time? Wow, this was now that I understand what good communication is. We had none, right? Like you did the flip of that. So I
Right.
think that it can happen in both situations depending on who you are as a person. If you're a person who, and that's who you are, you're a person who's looking for the positive, and that's a wonderful trait to have. Sometimes, however, you're a little bit in la la land, not looking at the reality of a habit or pattern that eventually could undermine your relationship or be something that needs some attention sooner than later. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem.
But let me add this to what you're saying though. And if you're in our community and you're someone that has done a lot of work on yourself and a lot of work on the relationship or in the relationship as well, what do you say to the person that has done as much work, or there's probably not as anybody that's done as much work as you do on relationships or inner work that you have done, JJ? But what if you're somebody in the community that's done that amount of work and you still don't have a recipient of that information, or you don't have a willing participant in healing or a willing participant in the therapy? They have the capacity to do the work, but they just don't do the work. What do you say to those people that are in our community?
You can't ask another person. I mean, you can try. You can ask another person to work on themselves, but it sounds like you're blaming them. So it's about, I would like to improve our relationship. I'm interested in having a deeper connection and having better communication and having more intimacy. Are you interested in those things too? And they're either going to say yes or no. And they say, well, I'd like to work on them, and I'd like to work on them together. And I think it'd be beneficial to work on them separately. And you might get someone who says, well, I don't know. I don't want to go. Most, again, it's not, I hate to overgeneralize, but a lot of guys that like, no, I don't want to go to therapy. I don't want to go to therapy. I don't want to go to therapy. I had a bad experience once. I never want to go to therapy. And I'm not pushing everybody into general therapy. I think half the therapies are ridiculous and they're stupid. I don't think you should be going in and having 5 sessions talking about the stupid reason why you can't work out the carpool or the toothpaste is on the cap. Like, this is why I like Imago, because you get down to the root right away and you understand the rationale and reason why your relationship is having issues or why you chose each other and what lessons you're supposed to learn. So you're on the same page together at the same time. But in the case of, and it's a lot of the cases out there that one person wants to work on it and one person doesn't. That's very normal. So what you do is the person who wants to work on it, work on yourself. What can you do to help the situation? What wounds do you need to heal through choosing this person? And what triggers do you have that through this person you can start to heal? And for you, it could have been communication and security. And I don't know, what else would you say you could have done on your own without her?
I probably could have worked on the abandonment thing. I know for me that was probably one of my biggest challenges because abandonment led to feelings of abandonment led to huge feelings of jealousy also, and that's never a good. It does not look pretty on anybody.
True. And mine were defensiveness and being blamed and not and being wrong. And so I worked on how to not be defensive, basically, like all the fears that I had about myself and being able to really let go of some of those patterns. And I did EMDR for that. So you always have something you can do. That's what I'm saying, which is why I think people give up too soon, because they think if the other person isn't willing to try, then and I know we've completely gone off the tangent here. This is way past Ralph's question because Ralph, you're not married to this woman. But there's always something. And so I'm not saying that if you're not married, if you are married.
But hold on a second. But the fact that Ralph recognizes it now, that's great. But there are plenty of people that are in our community, and I would be one of them, that probably ended up marrying the person that because I was willing to I didn't even see those problems. So yes, while Ralph is in the preliminary stages of those things and asking some really important, deep questions about, am I doing this? Do I realize that I'm doing this? Should this person not be, somebody I'm even committed to a relationship with? I would say that so many people do get married and have serious relationships, even not outside of marriage, that are based upon the issues that Ralph is bringing up now. So I think it is a relevant point for Ralph. Thank you, Ralph.
Okay. So the point is there's always something that you can do. There's always
Yes.
something you can do, from looking at your own triggers, your own patterning, your own styles of communication, the other person's love language. I'm doing laundry right now because you're coming home tomorrow. And
Hey, are you cleaning up the house? Because
well, today there's a showing, but I'm actually doing the sheets. And I know that you don't care. And I said this to myself this morning as I was aware of this. I'm going to
Yeah.
be doing the sheets. So I want you to have clean sheets when you come home. And I know you don't care, but he did. And the act of service in what I'm doing is so ingrained in me now because I got used to looking for ways I could show love in ways that would matter, and clean sheets on the bed after a trip, or clean sheets on the bed every week or whatever.
Explain that for a minute. What is how do you even know if you have clean sheets on the bed? I mean,
They're
uh,
tighter, they're crisper, they're warmer, they're
hey JJ, I mean, I don't care if you edit this out, but I just like to roll around on them with you. I don't really give a shit if they're clean or they're not clean. If I'm hanging out in that bed with you, I am in the right place. And for me, that's a genuine comment about I don't give a shit about that, and I don't even understand how somebody could. Now that being said, it's because it's not my love language, and I get that.
right. It's not your love language, but I am so used to, because I tried for years to think of ways I could do acts of service to show my love. Now, and I had asked him years ago, do you feel my love for you? And he said, yes. So this was not a matter of lack of love, but because again, I made it a point to try to speak another love language, because acts of service is not my love language. I don't care. I don't feel warm and fuzzy when you take out the trash. I don't feel special when you ask if there's something you can pick up for me at the store. I see it as normal habits of being in a couple in a relationship where you're just helping each other out, but it isn't like an act of love. Now, with that said, one of my current clients, her biggest love language is acts of service, and her ex-husband did nothing ever. And so,
That's hard.
the question I have for you, and you know who you are, is why did you stay that long? Why'd you marry him in the first place?
Well,
And those
hold
are,
on a second. Hold
yeah,
on. So, although that is her love language, but that's not his love language, he may not even be aware that that's her love language. And it could be as simple as just saying, hey, have you ever read this Gary Chapman book, The Five Love Languages? And you need to you need to read this. You need to please listen to this or read this. And I will do the same for you. This would really help our marriage if we understood. And let's talk about this. To not be able to have that as a starting block for healing is crazy. It is literally a sentence or two. But that being said, also, I remember when my marriage was getting near the end. I mean, it wasn't just as simple as turning a switch and she was gone. There was some conversation in there. I remember saying to her, this would be a really good book, because I can't remember when you recommended that I read that book. It probably was somewhere in December or January or February that you recommended that book to me, because I'd never heard of it. Do you remember when that was?
probably January or February.
Okay, so somewhere in there, when before we had started in our relationship, and I had shared that book with my now ex, she didn't even open it. She wouldn't open it. I think I bought 5 copies and left them around the house in every corner. And I'm like, you should just read it. It's really good, and we could figure out what it is that you need and what it is that I didn't even know at the time what I was, but I'm starting to read it at that time, and I'm like, oh shit, it's because I'm, words of affirmation. Oh gosh, I'm touch. Okay, oh boy, I'm quality time. Okay, I don't care about acts of service, and I don't care about gifts. Those are not things. So when she would want to do something like buy me an Apple Watch or whatever it was, thinking for her, because she would probably somewhere in there was gifts. I'm thinking, I'll go buy this if I want it. I don't want it. So, and what did I end up doing? I ended up buying one years later or a year later, and and not even use it.
So the indication that when you asked her to read the book and she didn't touch it, this is where you could start to notice she isn't willing to grow. Like the relationship isn't, her own wounds are more important to her at this moment than your relationship. And
Why
that's
would anybody want to hold on to your wounds, though? Why do you protect your wounds? If you're someone that's out there and you're like, well, no, I don't want to go to counseling, or I don't want to read this book, or I don't want to do this thing. What is it about that thing? Is it because now you have to face what your wound is? What would you rather do? Have the wound and destroy the things around you that are near and dear and sacred to you, or do the work and face those fears? I look at it and say, at this point in my life, I'm ready to face those fears, and I need to heal those wounds.
right. 2 divorces and where you are in your life stage. Absolutely. You are ready. People younger than you think, well, I just made the wrong choice, or maybe I got a 2 in over my head. So they're starting to think, no, I don't want to face that because it's what's happened to me. And there's nothing you can do to change what happened to me.
Wrong.
Even though you can change how you
Yeah.
feel about it and
Yep.
how it really rules your life. I mean, go back to episode 91 on, I don't remember which channel it is, 91, but Your Relationship Explained with Harville Hendricks. And he and I were talking about the only way to change your neural pathways is to go through it. You have to do what you resist, because your body is trying to protect you subconsciously. And so when you want to make a behavioral change and if you want to feel it, you have to feel it to heal it, but you have to push through some of those protective mechanisms that you have because your
Yes.
body thinks you're in survival mode. So for
Yep.
people that have had more trauma than you and I've had, you've had more than I've had, but for people that have had more trauma, it's not as simple. And again, don't forget, you have a lot of fire, and even though you're sensitive and emotional, you are a doer. And this next question, I'm going to jump down to one before we get to the last one. We have 3 questions today, and I want to.
Did we just cover the first question?
We kind of just covered the first question.
Okay, I'm in.
I think there's enough there.
I'm
But
fully invested.
if you look at this is a great segue actually. If I was to ask you, Doug Sandler, what do
Yes.
you think what do you do to numb? Or what do you do to when you feel uncomfortable, or you don't want to feel something, or what do you do to numb?
Work.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I bury myself in whatever that definition of work is. It's like I don't bury it in drinking or substance, and I don't bury it in television. I bury it in busy. I just get really busy, and sometimes, and again, maybe part of this is not good, but when I bury myself in work, I tend to accomplish a lot at the office, which leads to more success. Which means, but it's not a good way to get success, because then you start thinking, well, if I just bury myself in my work, I'm going to be successful. And if a relationship is bad and I bury myself, this is good. So equals burying my work equal more relationship. Hmm.
Okay. So the question is, and this comes from Jocelyn. Jocelyn says, how do you train yourself to slow down after job loss?
Hmm.
I'm a full-time caregiver to my parents. Mom is on renal dialysis 3 times a week. Dad is just 81 and slowing down. Full-time, now she says full-time fiance. I think that's what that says. I was working 40 hours a week and jamming everything in my life with the hours I had. I would be operating on 4.5 to 6 hours of sleep if I was lucky. I'm having a hard time just being. My dad made the comment and it made me sad. He said that now that you Now that you're more available to talk to, you always find something to do. So I want to see what you had to say about how would you recommend
What portion
slow.
of that? Tell me what portion of that you want me to speak to.
How do you train yourself to slow down after a job loss? And basically, the link here, I just already made it, is that when you work, Jocelyn, or anyone else, you work your full-time job. And let's say you work your full-time job, and whether you love it, you hate it, or it is what it is, you're used to being busy. You're used to having a focus on a target that isn't necessarily something super personal, that doesn't necessarily trigger you. So it's a way to focus that escapes the rest of your life. Okay. And then people come home, and oftentimes, depending on if, what the situation is, if you have children or if you're married, let's say you have a family and you're married. So it's a full family unit. You come home, and now the next task is to feed the children and to do their homework. So now you're focused on that task. And then you get down to the next and making dinner, and then cleaning up dinner, and then doing bath time, and then putting their, brushing their teeth and making sure, then reading them a story, and now they go to bed. So when you're in constant motion and constantly focused outside of you, which I'm not suggesting you shouldn't be. And by the way, shoulding, let's just say for, I want to add in the shoulds, because I got another one of those lovely recent two-star reviews. Right. It triggered me, and it triggered me a little bit because, let's be honest, people, don't spiritually bypass. If you're when you actually care about helping somebody, you contact them. When you want to look like you're being all so nice because you got triggered, then you put the should on somebody. So I'm not shoulding you. And I would really hope that everyone listening would catch yourself when you should somebody. There is no should. I have not signed any rule book that says I have to do this show in any way in particular. It's my decision about how I want to do it. If you don't like it, I'm okay with that. Move on. So please don't tell me what you think I should do. I'm not asking. And if you want to have a conversation, send me an email. Don't leave me a negative review. I mean, you can do that. That's fine. That's up to you. But I think that you are fooling yourself if you think that's being helpful. So back to the shoulding, so that's your life. You're a full-time worker. You have a family of children. You have a husband or a wife. It's a lot, and it's a lot of outside focus on other people and other things. And so when you get down to what's next for you, most of the people don't, and me included, and I don't have all that, don't really take the time to process their own feelings on a regular basis. So this is where anxiety comes in, that people just think they have anxiety, but the real root is you haven't dealt with any of your shit. You don't know what your needs are because you're never focused on your needs. You're focused on everybody else's needs. You're focused on your work. So you yourself come with your own triggers and emotions and needs and feelings, and without actually examining them on a regular basis and then problem solving your own personal needs and getting them met, you just keep building and building and building all of the things underneath the rug that you need, that you're ignoring because you're paying attention to everybody else. That's where people pleasing comes in. That's where rescuers come in. And again, it is normal. I'm not trying to shame anybody. I'm telling you like it is. This is what happens. And most of us aren't taking the time to really look at, what is it that I need? What is it that I'm really feeling? And how can I help myself so whatever this feeling I'm having is goes away, and I have more in my gas tank to help everybody else, versus deplete, 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 ignore, 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 shove under the rug. And then all of a sudden you have a breakdown. All of a sudden you don't know how to get out of it because you're so spinning all the time that you're really not checking in with yourself. So I'm going to pause for a second and let you come into this.
Well, I wanted to address one or two of the things that Jocelyn is noticing about her dad in this exchange that she had with him, or maybe in this comment that he made to her. And I think that Jocelyn, you're in my opinion, just reading this message that you had sent over, it looks like you're looking at your dad thinking, why is my dad saying this to me? And to a degree, and I'm saying this with Velvet on the sledgehammer for a moment, is where's the compassion for your father? I think that your father has a wound here that he is exposing to you, and maybe you might have missed that, thinking that he was directing this anger at you. It sounds like your mom is dealing with some health issues, and you're now the full-time caretaker for your mom, and you're helping your dad, who is 81 years old, who probably at some point in his career, old school, remember 1940s and 50s and 60s, probably spent the majority of his career away from your mother. And maybe there's a little guilt that he has that your mom is sick, and that maybe this is what he would be saying to himself. I mean, Jocelyn, you left your full-time job to help your mother as a caretaker. It sounds like you're probably doing a really good job with that. And I would pat yourself on the back if you're the primary caregiver to your mom. And I just think your dad is probably healing a wound, or exposing a wound that he has from when he was with your mom earlier in their life, when he was not spending enough time with your mom. And now that she's sick and he can't take care of her all on his own, maybe he's sharing something with you that goes a little bit deeper than him pointing the finger at you.
Well, first of all, she manifested losing her job. And I say manifested because it wasn't in alignment with who she was. And she knew that. And a lot of times when people join the manifestation challenge or the manifestation mastermind, or the manifestation boot camp is coming up, when you actually are aware that you need change and you don't like what's happening, the ball starts rolling. And sometimes it shows up in a way that you aren't, like this house, right? Like us moving. I want growth and expansion into a new stratosphere. Well, I can't hold on to all of the things, the creature comforts that I have, and then go there. And that's how I've been able to understand the need to move now, is to release this container that's been holding, a little bit more scarcity than it needs to be. There's a comfort to it, and I appreciate that. And we had the option to buy it, and we didn't want to buy it. So that's a choice that I made, and that you and I made. So when you say that you want change, there will be shifts that happen that will be uncomfortable. So for her, she is in a new energy. And because she's got the time, now she's becoming the caregiver. And I understand that she's taking the same energy because she was working and now she's doing the caregiving. And so, Jocelyn, hopefully there's been some aha moments in this conversation that we've been having about your situation, to recognize that you've probably been in such a cycle of keep your head down, keep your mouth shut, and just like keep going, that you haven't taken time for yourself. So this is why I do events, and I'm not pitching an event right now, but I'm saying this is why we are doing a couples retreat. There's a couple more events happening. That's why there are meetup groups. That's why there are church groups. That's why there are, different kinds of places where it's an outlet for a different kind of connection. And your dad, I'm hearing, yes, it made you sad because he wants to spend more time with you. So why not you could literally take your work day, quote unquote, like the things that you do for your mom and for your dad, and stick in quality time with your dad. Part of caretaking with them could be spending an hour with him, watching a show, talking about something, reading a book, taking a walk. I don't know if he's still mobile, but doing something interesting and unique to both of you that would be comforting and regenerating and rejuvenating for both of you. So I don't know if that's possible, but it's a way to start to be present within your circumstance, rather than do, gotta take care of this, gotta take care of this, gotta take care of this. How within that, because there are actions you still are wanting to accomplish, how within those actions can you be present and actually dig in a little bit? And that's how you're going to start to slow down this very fast spinning wheel that you've been on, that you've allowed momentum to take you, and you've been a part of it, and you continue spinning that wheel at that rate. Now you have the opportunity to slow the momentum down and really just learn how to be in a different way. And it's actually how you're going to figure out your next steps in attracting what you're supposed to be doing next, is to stop the cycle of where you were before because it wasn't serving you and you weren't happy with it. So now we have to learn how to be different. And I'm going to say the two things, and then I'll pause for a second. I'm going to say that the two things that would actually help you start to shift would be to acknowledge that this created sadness within you, and to acknowledge it, and then to do something about it by adding in a quality time activity, a grounding, consciously in the moment, present activity, whether it be conversation, playing cards, something with your dad. So that way you can actually give him what he wants. It sounds like you probably want it as well, and it will break the cycle of being in constant motion.
She does mention in that follow-up text message, I do meditate, but it's timed, and I do self Reiki. Is that how you say that? Reiki?
Yes.
Okay, I do self Reiki, also timed because you got to get to the next thing, and that part of it is exactly what JJ had said. You're so caught up in the cycle from your regular full time job, running, 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 rush, rush, rush. You haven't even taken a moment to take a deep breath and understand that where you're going and where you're heading. But you almost answered your own question here, and you just have to slow down enough so that you don't have to feel like you have to run to get to the next thing. This is the next thing, and stop focusing on the future. Just focus on the present moment, and you will find that all of this stuff will go away.
And just one more practical comment about that. So also, since you do Reiki and do meditation, just don't time it. So how about that? How about tune into how you feel and feel when it's ready to be done versus you have to be done in 10 minutes, because now you don't have the same constraints of having to go to work and having to come home from work and doing whatever else is in there. You can carve out more time. Or if that seems too nerve wracking because it has no structure to it, then instead of, if it was timed for 10 minutes, give yourself 30 minutes. If you had 30 minutes, give yourself an hour. So extend the time that you're putting into these being practices of connecting with yourself. And then, you can extend it more and extend it more. So that would be my recommendation on how to start to slow down. Okay, last question. This question is from Lori. She says, taking first steps. How does one take steps to help that money honey come to life? Now, this she's referring to the show I did with Morgana, which I know you know about, the money monster, the money honey. How much of it is action versus vibration? How does one decide on the best thing they have to offer this world? And that has to do with money.
Yeah. Really good question. This is one that, for some reason, this is the one that comes naturally to me because I don't know. I associate the money, honey, and and success. I match that with action every time. Somebody can have a desire but have no action, and they will have no result. Somebody could have action but no desire and not get a result. You need to have both of those. You need to have the desire and the action in order to create results. And yeah, I mean, other than just saying just do it. So what's the deeper question that she's asking? How do you make yourself want to do it? Is that what she's asking?
Let me preface this by saying Doug and I have both not done Morgana's program. Okay. And so I have worked with Morgana for years, meaning we've been colleagues, and I've interviewed her. We wrote, we were co-authors in a book together. I know about her money honey. I think it's a brilliant way of looking at a concept that for a lot of people doesn't get emotional because it's not in a person. And for her, she personalized it so that way it would make a deeper impact emotionally. So it is both. And here's where Doug doesn't know his own sort of patterning. And I don't mean that in a negative way, honey.
Of course not.
What you have that other people don't have. See, Doug's father created something called Sandler sales training. And I don't know if we've talked about this on the show at all, but your dad created a business that still to this day is highly active with over a couple hundred franchises all over the world. It's a multi-million dollar business.
Sure.
And so Doug had a role model of someone who created something out of nothing and became highly successful in the realm of money.
Just know that as you're listening to this, none of that money made its way to me. I'm just telling you that. So you're not talking to somebody that was raised with a silver spoon. I watched this happen and then received none of the benefit of it, other than having the legacy of that in my life, which is actually proving to be probably going to be more profitable than the initial. Anyway, I just wanted to share that for a moment.
And part of it is because both of his parents, while all of our parents do things well and all of our parents leave wounds with us, one of the things that both of his parents did well was to encourage him to be and do whatever he wanted to be, and never undermining or doubting his capability of getting whatever it is that he wanted. And his dad being an example of, you can create millions of dollars just by being you and by putting something out there. And so that's an example a lot of us don't have. So we see, especially, my mother's never really worked. She didn't even really have a formal education after high school. And my father was the sole breadwinner. So where do I get my entrepreneurial gene from? My astrological chart. Thank you very much. And part of that is for you too, Doug. So Doug has this very deep-seated belief, because he's seen the proof that, and it was told to him his love language of words of affirmation. And his mother used to put him in front of the mirror and say, look at him, you can do anything that you want. You are smart. You are fed you with all those positive affirmations.
Yep.
So you have a belief that is really next to unshakable when it comes to your ability to manifest money and success. You don't necessarily know how you're going to do it, but you believe you will do it and that you can do it.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. I'm the guy that looks at all the pony shit that's around the room and diving in and out of the shit. Somebody's asking me why I'm doing it. I'm like, because there's got to be a pony in here somewhere.
Okay, I don't really get that analogy, but we're going to move on from that because I don't want to talk about pony or shit. So we're going to,
got it.
So Doug is really rooted in that very strong belief of, I can do anything and I can make anything that I want to make. And there's no limit on my financial future. And it's just me figuring out what I like to do and what I'm good at and knowing what I'm not good at. So for him, he's got a foundation. Now that is not most people. Now there is some people, but that is not most people. And it wasn't necessarily me either, because I didn't have any examples of someone who was making millions of dollars or someone who was even an entrepreneur and creating something out of nothing.
Well, let me just add this just for a quick second. It's not that I saw him make the money. I saw him with the struggle. I saw him struggle, but still motor on, which I think is even more important than the money, because the money came many, many years later, decades after that. I was watching the struggle, and the confidence that the money was coming. And even though I couldn't tell at the time that there was money that was on its way to him, I knew it. I'm like, he's living, he's telling me something, but he's actually living those same words. And that to me was great. That was what I had learned from my father.
So back to this question of how about the money, honey, and is it more about action or vibration? So in Morgana's work, and I'm only speaking from what I understand, it's not from personal experience. I just want to put that out there, is that it's that part and that piece is vibrational. That piece is knowing what money is to you. And in the case of Doug saw money, and I don't know who your money honey is, but I know that when you look at money, you feel very positive and you have a very positive, forget what that looks like in terms of a money honey, but maybe she's seductive. I don't know. I feel like you already have, for the most part. Now you have a money demon for sure, because there's scarcity there, but I would say that your money honey is a little stronger and deeper, and it is about frequency and vibration. So it's figuring out how to change your relationship with money, change your feeling about money. I know I did a show on scarcity, and because one of my clients who was also working with me and with Lisa Thomas, and she had done a lot of the energetic clearings around things, right? And so that's important to move energy that makes it harder for you to propel forward. Mm-hmm. However, at the same time, there's still that sort of conscious awareness and thought patterns and interpretations, which is equally as important. Like, you can't do the energetic healing work and not change how you interpret things. I mean, you can change how it triggers you. It'll change how you feel about it, but you need both of them. And so she was talking about scarcity, and it really hit me hard that her scarcity was because scarcity meant for her, she's never done it before. She doesn't know how to do it. It's not because she has a bad relationship with money. She just doesn't have any idea or experience or anyone who can show her how to make money in any different way. She's only gotten a paycheck from one organization for her entire life. And so she has no idea what's possible. And so I would recommend that when it comes to this, frequency and vibration and action, Doug is a big action taker, but we've already established that he loves to work, and work is the way to numb sometimes. You can do both. You have to take action, but I don't believe in taking action for action's sake. I think action comes from anxiety. I think you need to get into a situation where you can start to learn. And my recommendation would be, for those of you dealing with money issues, is to, it's been inspirational for me. It's been fun for me. It's opened me up. Doug's relationship with money, the good part of it, has been a way for me to grow too, because my last relationship was the opposite. My last relationship is what I just described. It was, I only know one way to make money. You work hard for somebody else and you get a paycheck, and that is it. And when you have the opposite of that, you now have freedom to understand. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur now for 20 years. So I've always known there's no ceiling for me. I've always felt like I can make $1 million at any time. I just don't know how. I don't know the vehicle to get there. And I don't want to just chase the money. I want to do something I love. So finding that balance has been harder in the past than it is now, because now I have a partner whose energy around money and creating and attaining and allowing is much greater, and even greater than mine, because you charge more than I do on some things, which has been a good eye opener for me, because I have to reevaluate my own self-worth when you're charging twice as much as I am on certain things. And I'm like, but I can do what you do.
You
So why,
absolutely can.
why am I?
I always encourage you. It's like every time, like, you need to raise your prices. You need to raise your prices. And not because I just want it for the sake of that. I really do feel there's a huge value in what you offer. And with sometimes, and not just you, JJ, but I think many people, they undervalue their self-worth, and self-worth is internalized, and that comes out as, what do I charge as a professional? And I think too many times we undervalue that.
We absolutely undervalue ourselves. But I think this is where, for the first time, I would give some credit to sort of the masculine, feminine, male, female perception of money, because you don't even think twice about, in the realm of money. See, it's different for you with relationships, right? You, with money, you charge more than a lot of people, and you get it because you just expect it and you are worth it, but you don't even question that. Now, in relationships is a different story for you, right? That's where there's some wounds, where there's some scarcity, and the whole feeling jealous. That is like your confidence in the money area and the self-worth in the money area is so high compared to other aspects, that's the opposite for a lot of people. And it's awesome. It's great. And it's definitely inspired me, and I've grown because of it too. And I'm still like figuring out my own self-worth on other things, and realizing that, yeah, I can increase the price. And I have, and I am, and it will, everybody, because I have this whole other company that's put me on a pedestal of increasing value, that in terms of where we're putting me at, it's embarrassing if you charge less, or you charge what I'm charging. So I'm going to have to increase it.
And you're going to start to attract a different level of people to you, a different level of buyers to you when you start to charge more. So it really is something that feeds into itself. And it is a great feeling when you are able to get that first client at a specific dollar amount. And then you see, hey, not only do I get more money, but I'm treated with a lot more respect when I'm able to charge more. And then that leads to you having more confidence, which leads you to be able to charge more for what you do. It's a big, big circle, and it is an amazing circle that builds huge momentum.
And that self-worth conversation is an interesting one. And again, I didn't have anything to compare to, because on one side, for personal training, I charge more than most people that I know. And I used to hear about trainers, like celebrity trainers, quote unquote, that charge $300 an hour. I'm not $300 an hour yet for personal training, but I will be. And I know those people are doofuses. Sorry, I'm being so mean, but I would see one of them on some random television show because they were a celebrity trainer, and their science was shit. Like, they didn't know any more than I did. They knew less than I did. And I'm like, why are they charging $300? Well, because they train such and such celebrity person. That's it. That's the only reason, because who they're associated with, not because they know more. Well, I know more, and I don't feel like I can charge that because I don't know who's going to pay it quite yet. So just in case in point, when you, it's not to compare to feel badly about yourself. It's not to compare to feel badly about somebody else. I'm sure that person was perfectly fine. It just, I'm a snob when it comes to science, and most trainers don't understand science. Most trainers don't understand biomechanics. So I look around and I just have to keep my mouth shut, because nobody knows any differently until they get injured. And then I get them all after they're injured. So if you don't want to spend the money now, you'll spend it later. But as I digress, looking at your financial, I would recommend, and then I'm going to throw it over to you, Doug, and then we're going to wrap up the show. I would say to work on this, on the vibrational piece first, on the money honey, money monster piece first, on the emotional relationship to money, and not just in what fears you have, but also finding the action I would want you to take to support that would be to look around at people doing it differently. And because you don't know what you don't know. And when you live in a box and all you know is one way, then of course you're going to have scarcity and feel restricted and not feel free. So in order to feel free, you have to understand what else is possible. Maybe pick up Entrepreneur Magazine. Even if you're not an entrepreneur, just see what's possible. And then after you can start working on expanding what you think is possible, talking to other people, learning about things like, wow, I didn't even know that's so unique. I never even thought about that. When you start to open up your mind in that possibility range, then you can start to look at, well, what kind of relationship would you like, and continue on with the frequency and the vibration. Hang around other people that don't have scarcity issues. Find people who make more than you. Find people who believe and are happier than you are, and hang out with them. Don't hang out with the people who don't believe, because they're the ones who have issues that are worse than yours and aren't going to help you get to a better frequency and sustain it, because you're constantly influenced by their lack of belief, which is going to make you feel like you can't take that leap. And that's what I've experienced recently in the last year and a half. And I mean, even though I never felt like I had a ceiling, I didn't realize I had a ceiling. I had a ceiling. I didn't know it, but I didn't know it. And now I know I had a ceiling, because now with you, Doug, I don't have a ceiling. The sky's a limit, and it's beyond and beyond and beyond. And it's amazing. And it feels so free, and it feels so hopeful, and it feels so empowering. And at the same time, just to bring in some law of attraction, I don't need any of it. I feel better. I don't need any of it. There is no anxiety underneath this, thinking I need this, I can't survive without this, I'm unhappy and I'll be happy when I get this. I don't need any of it, which is why I'm getting it. Right?
Yes, totally right. Totally right. The other point I just wanted to make real quick, and then we can wrap, is that you don't want to hang out with people that make you feel good about you because you are better than them or you're at a higher level than them. I'd rather have you go the other way. Hang out with people that you aspire to be like. And like JJ said, it's going to be a product of you hanging out with the people that are making the money that you want, have the responsibilities that they have, and are doing more than what you are doing. And when you can find that person and you're willing to accept mentorship from them, you will expand. I know that this is going to happen for sure. It seems like to me, like whenever I want to get to that next level in my life, whether it's personally or professionally, that person seems to find me and come into my life for a reason. And maybe those people are always around and I don't realize it, but as soon as I open myself up to the opportunity to find them, there they are. So just look for that opportunity and you will find it. It's coming your way.
And the last thing I'll say about action, because I don't like when people tell everyone to take action, because I'm an action taker. So if you're someone who's not taking action, you're afraid of taking action, you feel restricted in doing something, that's a fear for you. For you, take action. Do something different to break the cycle of emotional restriction. But if you're a doer and you are the person who's a workaholic and is always doing, then the advice is the opposite. Sit still and allow your emotions to surface. Allow yourself to be uncomfortable and learn how to get comfortable sitting still, being quiet, sitting outside, doing nothing. All right. So it just depends on who you are in that, in terms of the recommendation on action. And then when you're in the frequency, when you're in a vibration, because I know you're part of the manifestation challenge, when you're in that good feeling place, take action when you follow the impulse, when you get an idea, when you get a thought. The whole thing that we're doing right now with Doug was this whole story about somebody who mentioned his dad, and his friend told him, and then he contacted this guy, and this guy said, let's get together. Then we got together, and then the four of us had dinner, and then boom, we're now on this path. But it was because he had an impulse, I'm going to reach out to that guy. And his friend had an impulse, I'm going to tell Doug. And the person speaking it had an impulse, I'm going to talk about Dave Sandler today. So I'm going to mention his name because I always do. And so, it all became in alignment. And the actions that were taken were because they were in alignment first. So just check your action taking to be in alignment. That would be my recommendation. If you're an action taker, if you are not an action taker, then you know what? Start taking some random actions, because it may juggle and jiggle out some of those resistance that you have and start some new momentum for you. So that would be my recommendation. Any last parting thoughts on this show today, dear?
This is a good show. This is one that, not that they're all not good, but this is one that I really could get my, between the emotional baggage, the relationship issues, and the money. You've got like this is a winner. This is a trifecta of awesome today. Thanks, JJ.
Thanks, honey. All right, everyone. If you have any questions that you would like to have answered on the show, you have a couple ways to get them to us. You can go to jjflizanes.com and there's a contact sheet. People send me lots of questions that way. If you're part of my 30-day manifestation challenge, you can send them there. And I also get questions through Instagram and sometimes privately through Facebook Messenger as well. So those are all the ways to get some questions on this show. And we appreciate your participation. We hope that you got benefit and value out of today's show. We had a good time. So hopefully it affected you in a positive way. And we'll see you back here next week.
I'll see you tomorrow, honey. Back in LA.
Yay.